Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 4 of the Frick Pittsburgh's Unofficial Gilded Age Aftershow. With me on screen is one of my very dear work friends, Dawn Breen, who is the Frick's Chief Curator and Director of Collections. If you watched us during Season 1, you'll recognize Dawn. She did several episodes with us last year. Thank you for being here, Dawn, during Thanksgiving week. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled to be back.
We are going to do a short Thanksgiving episode. Dawn and I are in the office today, but we'll be taking some time off as our other people on staff, our frontline staff is getting ready to welcome visitors over Thanksgiving weekend, but everybody is busy doing holiday things. So we'll do a quick episode today, and then we'll be back with a full, longer episode next week. There is so much to talk about in what's been happening, both in this episode, and it'll just continue. I think we're halfway through, right? If this is episode 4, I think there's 8 this season, which feels kind of crazy. So anyway, slightly shorter today, but we wanted to start with it's Thanksgiving week, and we wanted to say thank you to all of you who've been watching us, like thousands of views, which is honestly crazy for us to think about, and lots of really lovely comments that you are enjoying the after show and, enjoy watching us and our commentary, and we're grateful for that. It makes it fun for us to know that you're out there on the other side of this Zoom screen. We also have some good comments. Lots of people have posted questions and thoughts, so we'll get to a couple of these today, but we've been not great at replying online, so we just wanted you to know that we are seeing them, and we will start talking more about your questions and thoughts as we go through the rest of the episodes. So quickly to jump in, we decided to start with the biggest thing that happened, which was, at least for me, Ada's proposal. Were you surprised? I don't know. What did you think about that?
I was surprised. I thought things were moving relatively quickly, but if we are indeed halfway through the season, I suppose they had to accelerate this romance.
Good point. She looked astonished, but also, so setting it up, she's with the rector. They're in the church of all things. My husband was like, they're in the church in front of the choir and they're kissing.
It felt like a date in church, which it maybe only a 19th century thing.
And he asked her to go to the opera, right, to the academy with him. And then suddenly sort of throws himself down on one knee and pops the question. And Ada looks surprised, but also not, and also really thrilled, and says yes on the spot, which made me laugh because she was nervous to tell Ada she got peonies 2 days before. No, she has different news. I don't know. What do you think, Dawn? I mean, she's probably in her late 40s is she supposed to be? I mean, she has every right to sort of take up and get married, but it does feel like a monumental shift for her.
I know. It's going to be such a change to their household, which they definitely hint at toward the end of the episode with a solo and Agnes having dinner by herself. But I was swept up in the romance, and I loved the earlier scene where they had a very Jane Austen style, fingers brushing moment that kind of set it up. But my heart really melted when he said that there are so many things you can still do. And I thought that was just really charming and sweet. So I was all for it by the end of the episode.
And he's genuine, right? We haven't had any indications that this is for anything other than he seems very sweet and kind and has devoted his life to service and found this woman who he sees as his partner.
Yeah, definitely no symbolism in the name, a la Mr. Rakes of last season. So taking that as a positive.
We all know that I'm the only one who liked Mr. Rakes. I thought he was cute. I thought it was going to work out. You guys were all like, no, look at his name.
No, we saw it coming miles away.
Well, I'm happy for Ada, and that seems like it's going to be a storyline that maybe sort of dominates for a good part of the second half. There's again so much happening. Peggy's visit down to Tuskegee Institute deserves more time than we have today, so we'll tackle that one in the next episode, and it looks like it'll still continue. I mean, she's still down there, but there were some really intense conversations that she and her boss, the editor, what's his name, Turner? I'm so bad with the name.
T. Thomas Fortune.
Mr. Fortune and Peggy and the Washingtons were having across the dinner table that were, very interesting and important. So we'll tackle that next episode post Thanksgiving. The other, I guess, slightly lighter dramatic storyline was all about Bertha Russell and Turner, her former lady's maid, now Mrs. Winterton, and their ongoing clashing around many, many issues. That kind of dominated a good bit of the episode, I think.
Yes, I am. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about Winterton, if we're supposed to sympathize at all with her kind of, I guess, Bertha's machinations against her, or if she is truly, with the tantrum that she threw at the end of the episode, like just meant to be the villain of the story.
Right, because you kind of, if she was more likable, would we be more invested in her upward rise? I don't know. She's not a likable character, and it makes it hard to feel like, go Turner, but then you do feel badly because she's not equipped with all of the resources that Bertha has at her disposal, really. I mean, she's got determination, but Bertha can sort of pull different social strings that Turner doesn't have access to yet.
She was definitely shoving that, the fact that she had an academy box, shoving that in Bertha's face, like incessantly, going on the patron tour early in the episode for the sole sake of telling her that she wasn't going to be a patron. So it did feel like a kind of a nice comeuppance.
So it was a shock. And you were saying you think Bertha maybe told Caroline Astor about Turner's background? Like, that wasn't clear to me how Caroline, sort of Mrs. Astor, knew that Turner had this sort of inappropriate.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell if we figured out who told Mrs. Astor or not. I imagine it could be Bertha. I'm not sure who else, would be invested to reveal that fact or even know that fact.
I mean, it's the ultimate slap at Turner that, to sort of out her like that is going to change everything. It was interesting and weird. And we actually have a comment from one of our viewers, which really fits into this, that I'll read if it's okay. Commenting on just this point about Turner's sudden appearance in high society. So this is the comment on one of our episodes. What I don't understand is how easily Turner became accepted to old money society. I think the show didn't do a good job with this. It feels unlikely to me that high society wouldn't have looked into her past. Just writing a letter to a rich guy seems unlikely as well, based on people needing formal introductions. I just don't buy into her easy rise. And I had been thinking the same thing, because there's so much fuss over your pedigree and your background with the old money. With the newer money, I guess, maybe less so. But there was a follow-up comment that I also want to read because I think it's a good point. Somebody replied and said, I wonder if we've just reached a point where it's nearly impossible to remember or even envision a time when one could have a not easily detected past, since we can't exist without creating a semi-permanent footprint to follow these days. She could manufacture a backstory that is as unverifiable as it is undisprovable. And that is, I think, a good point to make, that people could reinvent themselves in the late 19th century because there wasn't certainly a digital record or maybe even photographs or archival materials that would follow you, right? So that it does seem plausible, but I also get the point that it's crazy that she has slipped this easily into society. It
seems really fast. And clearly her husband doesn't know much about her background either. As she very carefully tries to say, she was a companion to Bertha, which would be an extremely different thing than being a lady's maid, which of course we know is the truth. But he seems completely unaware, which, yeah, I guess is possible when, today we're haunted by our Facebook post from a decade ago, whereas that kind of record doesn't exist in the 19th century. And the social world and the social ladder is so fluid, especially in America, where we don't have that landed gentry aristocracy structure of England or Europe, where you can climb that ladder, perhaps undetected from your background.
What do you think she told her husband, Mr. Winterton? Anything at all? Maybe it didn't matter. She's young and pretty and took an interest in him, and maybe he didn't really care. I don't know. They got together pretty quickly. I mean, it's not a lot of time between season 1 and season 2, and here she shows up married. So either he didn't ask or she told him some kind of fabrication.
No, I feel very akin to Oscar Van Ryn. Like, I want to hear more about that story of how she got to where she was, because he also seems quite surprised when he sits when she's seated next to him at that dinner.
Must hear. He was very charming in this episode. I like Oscar, but he was sort of cute and funny and just kind of an extra needed character in certain moments, I think, that kept the story moving. Well, the other part of the Bertha Turner situation is the Duke. You mentioned royalty and all of that. Bertha is kind of not great with this. Like, she really isn't very nice over what she pulls. Do you want to tell everybody what happened or what we were talking about?
Well, yeah, I mean, she is incredibly sneaky. She breaks into the dining room before the party moves in, and she switches her seating with Miss Winterton so that she can be seated next to the Duke, and Miss Winterton is pushed down to the far end of the table, and Bertha can pull out all of the charms and become friends with the Duke, somehow convincing him to stay at their place in Newport instead of the Wintertons. So I can't wait to see how this relationship moves forward, and I have a feeling we'll be seeing quite a bit of the Duke. I'm imagining this will be the show's way of introducing the Dollar Princesses into the storyline, and I certainly hope so. But yes, Bertha really makes an extremely advantageous connection by conniving to get her seat next to the Duke.
Well, and that's when Turner / Mrs. Winterton throws that fit. She reads in the paper, her husband reads in the paper that the Duke is now staying with the Russells in Newport, right? Like, they didn't even tell her, nobody told her. It seems like that was how she found out that she had lost this illustrious house guest, which would be a blow. I mean, that'd be a blow to anybody, but especially when they're fighting this battle. So the Dollar Princesses were young American heiresses, hence the Dollars, who married British aristocracy, members of the aristocracy, right? So it was advantageous in the sense of they took their American money over to save failing estates, like the Downton Abbey story, Cora and it's on my mind. I need more coffee.
Lord Grantham.
Yes, exactly. She had been adult. They wound up falling in love, but that was that kind of story of an American young woman crossing the ocean, right? So you think there's going to be a Dollar Princess story coming?
I wonder. I mean, it is definitely setting it up with all of these wealthy, young, available women, and this bachelor, I guess, stepping in. I could see this story of the exchange of wealth for social prestige happening. We'll see.
We actually had a comment from somebody watching us from across the pond. This is very fun. Thank you for this one as well. I love the series. Thank you for returning for season 2. As a Brit, it's fabulous to learn more about American history, especially the class divide, which at this time seems much more fluid than it was here in the UK, with the possibility of moving higher in society quicker, even if you weren't welcomed, which is an interesting point. And I think very true, because the United States was, the Gilded Age in the United States was so scrappy and full of change and full of trauma and drama and opportunity and wealth disparity, right? People were at every aspect of the economic level, the strata, right? Very, very poor up to very, very rich, but a lot of opportunity potentially to move between without maybe some of the formal hangups that might have held back British society in the same ways, I think. I don't know. I'm not being very articulate today. You know what I'm trying to say about
that? It's a holiday week.
And that's, again, we talk a lot about that on our Clayton tour. You know, I keep referencing it, but this tour, this Gilded is Not Golden tour, talks about, you know, how much disparity there was, but also does talk about opportunity. And people were flooding, for example, to Pittsburgh because there was there were jobs, there were ways in. Now, whether you went as high as you thought you could, that was another story, but at least people had the illusion of opportunity here in the United States. But Turner has certainly seized it. We'll see what happens. That was a lot of fun. Bertha definitely had the upper hand, and I'm going to say something very unkind, but Bertha's hair is an useless comment. Bertha's hair is really bothering me. It's bothering me. It's pulled real tight and it's like a kind of a helmet. I guess it's probably a wig on the show, but anyway, I guess it's pulled tight and very firm to reflect her personality, but I don't know. I want her to fluff up a little bit and something up. I was eyeing her hair last night thinking, I want to do something with that hair.
No, loosen up a little bit.
She's not loose at all. Although I will say one of my favorite moments of the episode was when she kind of flipped out and was like, I do all of this for all of you. Who I always have your backs. Who has mine? That was a very wife mother moment in the sense of I'm doing all this. You people need to help me.
It's a great parallel to the 21st century invisible load that so many working moms and stay-at-home moms experience, of all of that additional labor.
Yeah, I think her husband had said, well, you'll handle it. You can handle it. She's like, I'm tired of handling things, which was the first time she's kind of admitted that, because she always seems to love to handle things. And I understand that too. I like to do things and everything, but sometimes you also don't want to have to do everything. And so that was a very kind of real moment for her, I think.
She took that responsibility seriously, because when she laid into Mrs. Blaine, I mean, that was harsh.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, poor Larry got dumped at the doorstep. I mean, it was a little broken heart. It was sad.
I know. The demise of one relationship to the blossoming of the other, with the engagement of Ada and the pastor.
Back where we started, there was, again, a lot more to talk about, which we will fold into next week. We'll see who's going to be on with us. We'll pick up with Peggy's storyline and some other things that happen. It sounds like they're going back to Newport, which will be a lot of fun. Thank you, Dawn, for hopping on and spending a few quick minutes before the Thanksgiving holiday. And again, thank you to all of our viewers. We really enjoy your comments. Keep them coming. It makes us feel connected, as I said, to all of you out there. We hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving, some peace, some quiet, a nice holiday time with family, friends, however you spend it. And we will see you next week for episode 5. Thank you so much. Thanks, Dawn.
Thank you.